probably one of the most horrendous crimes that I've come across.
I used to find myself in the garden in the middle of the night, standing out by myself crying my eyes out.
David Fuller thought he'd got away with it. 34 years ago, the electrician murdered 2 women in Tunbridge Wells, but those murders were not his only crimes.
I had spent 2 wonderful hours in the mortuary, sleeping with her, and that gave me some sort of comfort. Little did I know that my daughter had been violated.
As he finally faces justice, the question remains, how could this have happened? Pam Nell's daughter Wendy was just 25 years old when she was found dead by her boyfriend in her blood-stained bed. She'd been sexually assaulted and strangled in her bedsit in Tunbridge Wells in Kent.
And this was a picture she asked me to take, to say that's a picture of the start of my new life. Didn't have much of it though, did she?
As the years went by, Pam believed the person who killed her daughter would never be found.
It was just the things that we lived through. You know, it wasn't something you knew. Well, once you go past a year, you think, oh well, it's never going to happen.
David Fuller murdered another woman 5 months later. The body of Caroline Pierce, who was just 20 years old, was found lying in a flooded drain. What became known as the bedsit murders remained unsolved for years.
Morning. David's place. Hello. Needs to come and speak to you.
But in 2019, thanks to developments in DNA techniques, police tracked Fuller down.
David, you're under arrest on suspicion of the murders of Wendy Nell and Caroline Pierce in 1987.
There's some stuff stuck on the back of that one as well.
It was during a search of his house that they discovered Fuller had been recording himself sexually abusing dead bodies and possessed extreme pornography.
Number 48.
They found thousands of videos, CDs, photographs, in total 14 million images.
There are evil, sadistic individuals that have come across, and then there's David Fuller, who his actions just speak for themselves. There are no words for him.
In July 2020, police came to Nevra's Kamal's door to tell her that her daughter had died falling from a bridge. Over a year later, more officers turned up.
They said to me, it's to do with Azra. And for that moment, I said to them, well, Azra's dead.
The police had come to tell Nevras that her daughter was one of Fuller's victims in the hospital morgue.
I had spent 2 wonderful hours in the mortuary, sleeping with her, and that gave me some sort of comfort. Little did I know that my daughter had been violated prior to that day and in the evening of that day. And there's me kissing and cuddling and saying my last goodbyes. And that's quite awful. Quite awful.
Fuller has admitted violating nearly 80 dead bodies, many of which he filmed, but detectives believe there may have been hundreds more victims in 3 decades he worked at the hospital. David Fuller had a swipe card for the mortuary because he sometimes needed to do maintenance work there. He knew that staff went home at 4 p.m. Porters might still visit the receiving area, delivering bodies, but the same fridges had doors opening onto the post-mortem area where Fuller committed his crimes. Here there was no CCTV until recently, and the fridge doors were unlocked. Fuller gained access through the utility rooms, avoiding cameras, but he still needed to swipe in.
He had entered the morgue and autopsy area thousands of times, not hundreds, but thousands of times. No one ever stopped him or asked, well, what's this guy doing in here? He was the man to go to. He always made himself available to the mortuary staff. They thought that the perpetrator was a great guy. And basically, he groomed them. They became compliant. They never questioned him. He would actually abuse women whilst porters were bringing in dead bodies externally and internally.
If what he did to Azra was his only crime, he would face just 2 years in prison. A rape charge carries between 4 and 19 years. Azra was a friend of mine and helped me produce some of my reports here at Sky News. Her mother believes the best tribute to her is for lessons to be learned. The Hospital Trust has launched an independent investigation into whether anything more could have been done.
Men and women up and down the country will be appalled by what they're listening to, what they've read about. And I remind them that if this was your loved one, you would roar with rage. And I'm silently roaring, and I'm beseeching people that make laws to create a law that this becomes an offence and the appropriate sentencing is passed down. We need to respect the dead.
It started then. So it started then.
The Hospital Trust has launched an investigation into what happened. David Fuller has pleaded guilty to his crimes, including double murder.